Hello everyone, I'm Chris Michael with this week's 4 for 4 Sports News. This week's top story: the Freedom Patriots' big win over Nazareth. I still say Freedom could be a very dangerous team in the playoffs depending on seeding. Let's take a look at their personnel. They have Joe Young, who in my opinion is the best quarterback in the area. Deshaun Peterson has turned into the most exciting running back in the league. His per-game average is now at 8 yards per touch against some very good defenses. I've always been impressed by the core of wide receivers, and I'll go on record right now and say that Al Huertas will be one of the top 5 playmakers among next year's senior class. And let's not forget the guys up front for doing a very solid job for 3.5 quarters against a very good Nazareth defensive line as well last week. I'm still a little concerned about the defense. They gave up 27 second-half points to the Blue Eagles, and prior to that, they allowed an average of 32 points per game in the 3 previous games. However, if Freedom can get their defensive troubles straightened out, they could make some major noise in the postseason. Point 2. Saucon Valley versus Notre Dame, a rematch of last year's best game in the Colonial League. They're playing this Friday, and there's storylines all over the place for this one.
First of all, Saucon Valley's defensive coordinator, Chuck Muller, was last year's head coach at Notre Dame, in which Phil Stanball, now the current Crusaders head coach, was an assistant.
Some of my keys for the game: I think Saucon Valley has to shorten the game and control the tempo. Notre Dame head coach Phil Stanball is going to be throwing his offensive playbook at Saucon Valley. The Panthers are going to try to counter by giving some different looks to a young Notre Dame offense, and they're going to try to confuse them as much as possible. Also, Saucon Valley can't let Notre Dame back in the game should the Panthers get out to a big lead, like they did against Southern Lehigh. Notre Dame's offense is much too explosive to let down late in the game. Also, I think line play will be huge, as both of these teams have had success for most of the season. By the way, if you missed Coach Stanball and his players recently appearing on RCN SportsTalk, make sure to check it out through RCN On Demand or online. Point 3. 3 things really bothered me about the Eagles' loss to Washington last weekend. First of all, the Redskins couldn't run the ball on anyone, including Cleveland. They were averaging just 86 yards on the ground, but were able to run up and down the field against the Eagles. Second of all, the Birds' play calling has gotten very vanilla and predictable. It has to get creative, like yesterday, if this team is to continue to have playoff aspirations. But thirdly, and most importantly, the right tackle situation. Completely mismanaged by Doug Peterson. He's known about the possible suspension for Lane Johnson for weeks, yet he didn't seem to have a plan B in place. Big V was seen as a project just a few weeks ago. Now he's an NFL starter, and then when he struggles, you don't want to take him out because of running the risk of hurting his confidence or hurting his feelings. This at the expense of possibly having your franchise quarterback getting maimed. Vaitai might be a nice player down the road, but I blame Doug Peterson for the problems at right tackle this year, not Mr. Vaitai.
How do you say his first name?
How do you pronounce Vaitai's first name?
Yeah.
Well, it's Halapula Vada Vidi Halapala Vidi Vada Voda Halapala Vida Mita Vegemin Hala Anamanapaya Halapala in a Gada Davida
9 hours later.
Halapula Levi Devada Hala Kuna Matata Hala See you tomorrow. Big hats off to the Penargil football team and their big win over previously undefeated Notre Dame. They have a lot of great seniors on this team, and remember, they were one of the teams to watch that we had cited back in August. And of course, they've had some losses since that time and have kind of fallen under the radar. But going into this weekend, they're the number 2 ranked team among District 11 3A. So watch out for Penargil come playoff time. Speaking of the postseason, it's a very involved process, the weighted point system that District 11 and a lot of other schools use. However, it has proven to be a very fair system. It's also very complex and about as difficult to explain and lay out for you as it would be to tell a 2-year-old how the Electoral College actually determines who becomes the President of the United States. However, we'll attempt to tackle all the different playoff scenarios and tell you what your team needs to do to qualify for the best possible seeding for the playoffs on our next Sports Talk show coming up on October 27th, when we'll look at the playoff possibilities. And I'll be joined by the extremely well-educated Keith Groller to help break everything down. So until next time, Hala Puli Vaiti Vaitai.
God bless you.
Thanks. Moving on.